Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MtG Traders. My name is Taryn, and this is the pre-release primer and draft/sealed guide as far as archetypes for Core Set 2019. So just like with the Dominaria pre-release guide, going to do a similar thing here, where we have like kind of slides here where we go over what to bring, what to expect, and then I'm going to go over the draft archetypes, not necessarily the best cards in common and uncommon, because I already did talk about that in a previous video, so if you want to check that out, it's going to be right there somewhere. Pop it in. So check that out and come back if you want to, and then we'll talk about the archetypes and kind of what to expect for the pre-release itself. But let's move on to that really quickly, starting with, of course, pre-release inventory, what you get for going to a pre-release. So for your local game store, I would definitely pre-order or sign up, because they're going to usually let you do that a little bit early in advance, just in case if you have an excited kind of demographic in your area wanting to play the core set. Sometimes there are only so many seats at a pre-release event, so you want to sign up for your seat in advance to make sure that you have a seat. And sometimes you can get away with like going to a midnight and there being open chairs for you. So I would definitely try and pre sign up if you can, for sure. But what you get in the pack is you're going to get a box that you can use as your booster box. 6 booster packs, this is a sealed event, not draft. This is sealed, so you build your deck, 40 card deck with the 6 packs you're given, 1 spin down die, and then 1 deck box, and 1 randomized promo. So this could be a rare from the set, and it's going to have a date marked on it as far as like the pre-release weekend, so July, 7th through the 9th, or something like that, or 8th, 7th through the 8th, something like that, on top of it. So it's a very specific card for the pre-release, and it could be, a super good rare like a Planeswalker, or it could just be an okay rare like, anything else in the set. I'm kidding. There are lots of good rares in this set, I promise. But yeah, so you pick something like that. Now, the one thing here before we get into actual deck building is you want to make sure that whatever you open up in your 6 packs, you don't have to play with a randomized promo. If the promo is not like going well with the rest of your packs, don't play it. Don't try and put that on a pedestal and build around that card just because it's awesome in some way or another. Now, if it works for your archetype, for what you have in your like pack of cards, fantastic, play with that. But if not, don't use it. Just kind of put it to the side and say, this is a really cool promo. I might use it for trade fodder later or turn it in for some cash or points at your local game store. But you can always, use them in a different format later instead of having to use them in the sealed pool. Because the pre-release is usually about 3 or 4 rounds, depending on how big your local game store is, that kind of stuff, on sealed Magic. So 40 card Magic, most of the time you're going to have about, I think it's 17, 18, or 16 of those cards out of your 40 are going to be lands, and the rest of them are going to be creatures, which usually 15 to 16 of them are going to be creatures, and the rest of those, besides creatures and lands, are going to be like spells, instants, sorceries, artifacts, that kind of thing, unless you have an archetype that kind of dictates differently. So let's move on here really quickly to the mana curve for a sealed deck. This is kind of a good idea for any kind of deck here, as far as like how you kind of structure your deck. For sealed here, we want to go, on the 1 mana curve, 0 to 2 creatures, 2 mana curve, 4 to 6, 3 to 5, 4 2 to 4, 5 1 to 3, and then anything after 6 mana, 0 to 2 creatures. So this is a really good way to kind of hopefully help you like understand, like, if you get into a deck early on and you have a lot of bombs in your sealed pool, don't necessarily play all of them because it's going to take you a while to play them for sure. But if you have a lot of synergy like Llanowar Elves or Druid of the Cowl, things like that, where you can ramp a little bit easier, it may be easier to play those 2 drops and 1 drops and then kind of skip 3 and 4 to play your 5 and 6 drops, things like that. Make sure that you have good synergy within your deck, and do some deck testing if you can in between like building the deck and doing some matches. But this is a really good way to kind of get used to how you're going to manage, your curve for your creatures, your spells, all that kind of stuff within your deck itself. So if you're new to Magic, then this is a really good way to go into it. If you're like, coming back into Magic, Core Set 2019 is amazing. It's a good way to kind of brush up on some old, like, classic cards that are in the format, or in the draft and sealed format, or standard format, going to be in the standard format. And if you're completely new to Magic, completely new, have no idea what to do, then hopefully this kind of can help you a little bit, as well as that commons and uncommons guide that I posted. And, I'll probably put another thing up here, over here somewhere, right over that way, where we talk about the full set review, because I have done the entire set review for Core Set 2019. Trying to get this up as soon as possible as well, so everyone can have as much information as possible going forward for Core Set 2019. So next up here, we have things to bring/buy at your pre-release. So one of the things is, a lot of people, when they go to a pre-release, they just expect to like walk in, get their box, and just play Magic. And you can definitely do that. Absolutely, definitely do that. You can use your spin down die as your life counter. But one thing is, there are kind of a lot of like extraneous elements and flourishes you can bring to your pre-release that helps kind of like ease your nerves, ease your stress, and keeping track of stuff on the battlefield. So, one, food. Make sure to eat before you come to an event, or eat, you know, like in between matches if you can, if there's time for that. Or, you know, if your local game store has food there, grab some candy bars, grab some snacks. Be hydrated, be full. Don't be like hungry and playing Magic, because, you know, this is a kind of a very heavily kind of internal mind game. So make sure to be well nutrition, like good in nutrition. You know, well hydrated, that kind of stuff, and not be thinking about food while you're playing Magic, because it will, like, you know, kind of throw you off your game, because this is going to be a 4 to 5 hour event, and you know, you can leave there being extremely hungry. I've done that several times, showing up, trying to play some Magic, and then leaving being like, I'm dying at like midnight. So don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. You're better than that. Next up, a notepad here. So you can use the countdown die as a way to keep track of your life total, but you can't keep track of your opponent's life total that way. And bringing a notepad and a pen also helps kind of do that. So you keep track of your life total, you keep track of your opponent's life total. You can also do some doodling, because I like to draw a little bit. So in between matches, if I have a free moment, I do some drawing if I'm not talking to people. Very good for that. You also have some dice here. So this is kind of like a typical pack of dice you'll probably get at a local game store. But if you have some dice, make sure to bring some with you, because there are going to be some cards in the draft and sealed environment that's going to have plus and plus one counters on stuff. So permanent plus and plus ones on things, or permanent negative ones on things. And like the dice here really kind of help keep track of that. You can also use like little pebbles and actual counters, like from Pokemon stuff as well. But, you know, sometimes it kind of multiplies on certain creatures, so you want to make sure you can kind of go from 1 to 2 to 3, that kind of thing, really easily. You can, again, do the same thing with the pebbles, but it kind of gets kind of messy once you have 3 or 4 on a single creature. Just a really good way to keep track of that stuff as well. And, you know, if you want to kind of protect your cards while you're playing them, make sure to grab some at your local game store, or bring some nice card sleeves. And deck box, you could bring that as well. But didn't include that on this, because the actual pre-release kit comes with like a box that you can put your cards in. But you can bring your own deck box as well. But yeah, hyper mats are really good. I like Dragon Shield a lot. There's just a ton of different ones. For me, I always pick like really cheapo ones, because I'm only going to use them probably once or twice ever, like within like sealed and draft. So I always like to get like the ones with like art on the back of them, that kind of stuff, because they're not really great at shuffling and stuff like that, but you're only using them for 40 card decks, and you're probably going to use them once or twice. So why not? Why not have some fun stuff for that? But that's going to be everything you want to kind of bring or buy while you're at the local game store, or before you come to the local game store. So number 1, eat food. You know, bring a drink if you can to your local game store. Sometimes local game stores won't allow you to have drinks in there because of spillage and stuff like that. But make sure to, you know, be hydrated and be full before you start the event. Have a notepad with you, bring some dice and some card sleeves with you as well. So from that, we're going to jump right into our draft archetypes here, starting with all of our multicolored kind of gold creatures here. Let's start off with the draft sealed archetypes, which are blue-white artifacts, blue-black control, black-red sacrifice. And these are the 3 kind of like hallmark cards in gold that kind of show you like, okay, this is kind of what the deck's kind of going for. Aerial Engineer is a 4-mana 2/4. As long as you control an artifact, Aerial Engineer has +2/+0 and has flying, so a very good like payoff in that particular meta. Blue-black control, which is a 6-mana 3/3 Nightmare Horror flying. Whenever it enters the battlefield, target opponent discards a card and you draw a card, so good like advantage for you as well, just being a 6-mana 3/3 flyer, so pretty good there as well. And Brawl Bash Ogre, a 4-mana 3/3 with Menace. Whenever Brawl Bash Ogre attacks, it may sacrifice another creature. If you do, Brawl Bash Ogre gets +2/+2 until end of turn, so a nice sacrifice theme. Next up for us, we have red-green dragons, green-white auras, and white-black life gain. Draconic Disciple is a 3-mana 2/2. You can tap it, add any mana of any color to your mana pool, which is great. You can also pay 7, tap it, sacrifice it, and create a 5/5 dragon creature token with flying. Again, great in the early game, fantastic in the mid to late game. Green-white auras, a Satyr Enchantment here, 3-mana 2/2. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. Super decent for that particular list. And Regal Bloodlord, a 5-mana 2/4 with flying. At the beginning of each instep, if you gain life this turn, create a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. So a great way to kind of reward you for getting lots of stuff with life gain. Next up for us, we have the red-blue spells, green-black value, and red-white go wide. So Enigma Drake, fantastic card from the Amonkhet block. 3 mana star 4 flyer. Its power is equal to the number of instant sorcery cards in your graveyard. Poison Tip Archer is a 4 mana 2/3 elf with reach and death touch, and whenever another creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life. So that could be creatures on your side of the field as well. Red White Go Wide is a go wide strategy, as it says. A 4 mana sorcery, create two 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. On end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain haste. So basically a good ending card for that. And the last archetype in Draft and Sealed would be the blue-green tempo card, the 4 mana 2/3 Elf Scout Flyer. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, you may pay green or blue, green and blue, not to, both of them at the same time. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter. That's what I was just talking about, the counters with the dice, on another target creature you control, and that creature gains flying until end of turn. So a really good card to kind of go wide again. So a lot of good stuff in the archetypes. So let's jump into kind of like what are the cards that are going to go with those archetypes. So with the white-blue artifacts here, we have Scholar of Stars, Aviation Pioneer, and Skilled Animator. I do recommend, guys, if you want to watch this video, watch it on like a desktop if you can, because it's going to be a lot of cards right here. I'm going to try and like explain all of them, but reading the cards, there's going to be a lot of them. So I'm just going to read like the top of them, kind of a little bit of what they do, and kind of move on from that. But Scholar of Stars, 4 mana 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, if you control an artifact, draw a card. Very, very good for this deck. Very good tempo. Aviation Pioneer is a 3 mana 1/2 that creates a 1/1 flyer, so very good at going wide and giving you an artifact as well. And Skilled Animator is a 3 mana 1/3 that when it enters the battlefield, target artifact you control becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 5/5 for as long as you control Skilled Animator, for as long as it remains on the battlefield. So a 3 mana 1/3 that creates a 5/5, that's ridiculous. And if you can put this with the Aviation Pioneer, it's a 5/5 flyer as well. So what? Very good all-star. I feel like in these sealed environments, if you can get this kind of combo going on. Other cards to put in this deck would be the Aether Shield Artificer, Suspicious Bookcase, and Gearsmith Guardian. Gearsmith Guardian being a 5 mana 3/5. It gets +2/+0 as long as you control a blue creature. So there's a lot of blue creatures, so we just talked about earlier, that go in this deck list very nicely. Suspicious Bookcase is a 2 mana 0/4 defender. You can pay 3, tap it. Target creature can't block this turn, so good way to get around some stuff. And the Artificer here is a 4 mana 3/3. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target artifact creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains indestructible until end of turn. So another way to get really like powerful artifacts to your opponent's face, or hopefully introducing some blocks, because they are indestructible as well. So very, very good for that situation. However, the Artificer is like the only white answer as far as creatures go for the artifacts deck here. But there is a lot of good white removal in the format, so I talk about them more in the commons and uncommons list or video. So talk about that too, or go look that up. And the last three, as far as like cards I like in this particular archetype, are Sky Scanner, Manalith, and Gargoyle Sentinel. So more artifacts. 3 mana 3/3 with a defender. You can pay 3, make it flying, and lose defender, so it can attack. A Manalith is just a mana tapper, so decent for us. And Sky Scanner is the 3 mana 1/1 with flying, but it draws you a card. So I like this card a lot because it gives you card advantage as well as being a flyer, so it can get over a lot of opponents' creatures, but also just a nice blocker too while drawing you a card. So that's it for blue-white artifacts, or a lot of other stuff you can put within that list and within the archetype. But that's it for this one. Let's move on to our blue-black control here. Essence Scatter, Dispersed, and Exclusion Mage. There's also Counterspell and Bone to Ash in the core set 2019. Lots of good stuff as far as counters go in the format. So if you get into them, I mean, you can definitely board them in for the archetype here. But Essence Scatter is definitely one of the best like kind of counter control magic spells in Draft and Sealed. 2 mana instant counter target creature spell. It's, Sealed and Draft are all about the creature strategy, so Essence Scatter is going to be good for that. Disperse, a good way to bounce an opponent's creature or token. 2 mana instant, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, so that's also removal, so it can also deal with the opponent's removal spell for a turn. Exclusion Mage is Mana War, basically. A 3 mana 2/2. When Exclusion Mage enters the battlefield, return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand, so very useful in that particular situation as well. And just being a 2/2 body as well is pretty good too, getting in some good attacks. Next up we have Omen Speaker, Salvager of Secrets, and Murder. So getting more into the black here with Murder. 3 mana instant, destroy target creature. That's like the bread and butter of black for sure in this particular list. Very good in the control list. Salvager of Secrets is a 5 mana 2/2. Has the ability to get back a target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, so a good way to get back a Murder from your graveyard if you just used it. And Omen Speaker is really good at being early game blocking, as well as having you the ability to scry in the early game as well. So when it enters the battlefield, it's a 1/3, and you get to scry for 2. Moving on to the last 3 here for the blue-black control, we have Lich's Caress, just a good removal spell, 5 mana sorcery, destroy target creature, you gain 3 life. Skeleton Archer, an interesting card here for us, a 4 mana 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, deals 1 damage to any target, so that could be your opponent's face, could be a planeswalker, could be just a creature as well to kill it. Rise from the Grave is also probably the marquee card in the blue-black control list. 5 mana sorcery, uncommon, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield. Remember, that's a graveyard, so it could be your opponent's. Under your control, that creature is a black zombie in addition to its other types. So again, I'm only going to be talking about the commons and uncommons and all these archetypes. All of the rares that kind of go into this list, all they do is they just make it more impactful in the format. So definitely look those up in the core set review as well. Next up for an archetype here, we have the black-red sacrifice archetype. Lots of stuff you can sacrifice in this list as far as core 19. You have Goblin Instigator. It's a 1/1 that creates a 1/1 for 2 mana. Very good. Doom Dissenter is a 1/1 that creates a 2/2 once it dies. So if you sacrifice it, it creates a 2/2, which is value. And Ravenous Harpy is one of the best attackers in black in this particular archetype. A 3 mana 1/2 with flying. You can pay 1 and sacrifice a creature and put a +1/+1 counter on Ravenous Harpy. So you can do that, multiple times in a turn. You can do that at instant speed as well. Just very, very good. Basically, if your opponent's attacking in and you have Ravenous Harpy and you're blocking a lot of stuff, so it's considered blocked, then you sacrifice it, make your Harpy like a 3/3 or a 3/4, something like that. It's a huge threat and a great way to kind of use the sack outlets here. Other stuff you can put in this deck list are Blood Divination, Reassembling Skeleton, and Thud. Thud being one of the most fun ones. A 1 red mana sorcery. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature. Thud deals damage equal to its sacrificed creature's power to any target. So that includes, again, opponent's face or a planeswalker. Reassembling Skeleton is basically, as its name states, a reassembling creature here. A 2 mana 1/1. You can pay to return it from the graveyard to the battlefield tap. So it's a great sack outlet for this particular deck list. And speaking of good sack outlets, we have Blood Divination here. A 4 mana sorcery. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, draw 3 cards. So fantastic little interaction here with some Reassembling Skeleton, as well as, Ravenous Harpy and things like that. And the last 3 are Act of Treason, so we want to sacrifice our opponent's creatures. Macabre Vault, which means we get to return 2 target creature cards from our graveyard to the hand and discard a card. And Abnormal Endurance, so a very good card for this as well. A 2 mana instant until end of turn, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains when this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. So you can use this on a sacrifice trigger. You can use this also to hopefully force a block or trade from an opponent's side of their side of the field. Just a very good card on block, on attack, and on the sack, thanks to the Ogre here. Moving right along to another archetype, we have Red-Green Dragons, Dragon Egg, Electrify, and Spark Tongue Dragon. Spark Tongue Dragon being probably one of the best commons for the Dragon deck list here. 5 mana 3/3 flyer. You can also pay an additional 3 mana, and when you do, it deals 3 damage to any target. So it is a great card if you want to deal 8 mana, but also just being a 5 mana 3/3 flyer is decent as well. But if you have the mana, thanks to this being a red-green kind of ramp strategy, it can do 3 damage, basically bolting an opponent's face, an opponent's planeswalker, or an opponent's creature. Electrify is here for us to just basically, electrify a creature. 4 mana instant, deals 4 damage to target creature. Again, we have a lot of mana going on with the Red-Green Dragons list, and Electrify helps us do that. Dragon Egg is here as well as being a great blocker and attacker in the mid to late game. A 3 mana 0/2 defender, and when it dies, it creates a 2/2 dragon with flying that has fire breathing, which means you can pay 1 red, and this creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So basically a 3 mana 0/2 that turns into an even better 2/2 flyer with fire breathing. Super good on that list as well. And while this isn't technically a dragon, I did want to include it in the Red-Green Dragons list because it is quite mana intensive. A 5 mana 6/3 Siegebreaker Giant. It has trample and you can pay for and target creature can't block this turn. So a great game ender for you if you want to put it into the Red-Green Dragons list. Just a great way to slot in there. Druid of the Cowl and Gift of Paradise are other mana rampers in this deck list as well, helping you to get to that 4, 5, 6 mana slot as quickly as possible. And lastly, here we have a Vigilant Baloth, Volcanic Dragon, and Elvish Rejuvenator. Just kind of wanted to throw in the Baloth here because it's just a fantastic green bomb you can put into the dragon list if you just don't have that many dragons. Volcanic Dragon here is like the best dragon at uncommon. A 6 mana 4/4 flyer with haste. The Vigilant Baloth just has 5/5 vigilance. That's already ridiculous. And Elvish Rejuvenator here is a great way to get some land in the early game as well. So a 3 mana 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put a land into your hand, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library in any random order. So pretty decent. Actually, put a land from among them onto the battlefield tapped, not into your hand, onto the battlefield tapped. It makes it even better. It's even better than what I thought, than what I read in my brain. Sorry about that, guys. And moving on to another archetype here, we have the blue-red spells list. Very fun card here, or archetype here. Aven Wind Mage, Departed Deckhand, and Gutter Snipe. Gutter Snipe making its fantastic return in Core Set 2019. A 3-mana 2/2. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage to each opponent. That's very powerful, and you know, casting those instant sorcery spells feeds the Enigma Drake. Departed Deckhand is basically just an unblockable creature here. A 2-mana 2/2. When Departed Deckhand becomes the target of a spell, sacrifice it, so that is the downside. But Departed Deckhand can't be blocked except by spirits, and there's probably 2 spirits in all of Core Set 2019, and one of them is Departed Deckhand, I think. You can also pay for another target creature you control can't be blocked this turn except by spirits, so another upside there. Aven Wind Guide is a good card for us. It's a 3-mana 2/2 flyer. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Aven Wind Aven Wind Mage, sorry, gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Aven Wind Guide is the card that's from, I believe, Amonkhet block. This is Aven Wind Mage. But basically having prowess here whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, so very good for that. Next up, we have Disperse, Anticipate, and Tormenting Voice, so the instant and sorcery spells from the actual set here that are very useful in this deck list. Tormenting Voice is a great way to draw into cards, pitch things to the graveyard for the Enigma Drake. Anticipate is good at being able to sift early in the game. Anticipate being one of the best cards for 40-card decks because it's going 3 deep, so that's a lot considering versus a 60-card deck instead of a 40-card deck. And Disperse, just another card to bounce an opponent's creature away, as well as give Enigma Drake some much-needed boost in power. And then the last 3 here, Crash Through, Shock, and Lightning Strike. I had to include the 2 burn spells here because the red-blue spells deck is all about kind of burning, so if you get into the removal spells like this, you definitely want to. And Crash Through is a great card to draw cards, to kind of cast another instant and sorcery spell, as well as give all of your creatures trample, so if they need that last bit of damage, they can definitely get it with Crash Through. Next archetype here is the black-green value list. We have Gravedigger, Skeleton Archer, and Doom Dissenter. Gravedigger being very good at being able to get back a creature from your graveyard if you had it traded with a creature, as well as just being a 2/2 body as well. Skeleton Archer, again, very, very powerful as well, dealing 1 damage to any target, so a creature, an opponent, Planeswalker, or an opponent's face, but it's also a 3/3 as well, so it can offer some good trades. And Doom Dissenter being a great blocker, also turning into a 2/2. Next up for green here, we have the Daggerback Basilisk, Elvish Rejuvenator, and Recollect. So Basilisk here is a 3-mana 2/2 with Death Touch. Now this is going to get in a lot, like just free attacks, because Death Touch is something that an opponent does not want to deal with unless they have just a 2-mana 2/2 that they just want to chomp block with. Rejuvenator helps you kind of ramp a little bit into those bigger like black and green bombs, and Recollect helps get a target card from your graveyard to your hand for just 3 mana at sorcery speed. So very good if you have a Basilisk you want to get back from the graveyard, or just another big bomb. And then Rock's Oracle, Colossal Dreadmaw, and Hired Blade. All value creatures for us. Rock's Oracle here being a 5-mana 4/2, drawing you a card. So good card to be able to trade with something, attack in, and just give you card value. A Colossal Dreadmaw is just like the typical like common bomb. 6-mana 6/6 with trample, very, very good. And Hired Blade is a great card to trade with a creature on your opponent's side of the field. A 3-mana 3/2 with flash. Can't ask for much more than that for a good creature to block or attack in the following turn. Next up for us, we have Black-White LIFEGAIN, one of my favorite archetypes. I think this might be the most powerful archetype in Core Set 2019. However, Blue-White Artifacts is pretty close there. Ajani's Primate being one of the marquee cards in this particular set here as well. 2-mana 2/2. Whenever you gain life, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Ajani's Primate. One of my favorite abilities. Herald of Faith here is a 5-mana 4/3 flyer. Whenever it attacks, you gain 2 life. Very good as well. And Dwarven Priest is a 4-mana 2/4 that whenever it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life for each creature you control. So again, lots of life gain stuff going on here. Next up for us, we have Skymarch Bloodletter, a 3-mana 2/2 flyer. And then it does a 1-point life gain and loss for you and your opponent. So you gain 1 life, your opponent loses 1 life. Very good. Vampire Sovereign here is a Siege Rhino that flies. A 5-mana 3/4 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. Very useful. And Epicure of Blood is a 5-mana 4/4 that whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So if you have this card with the Sovereign, they're losing 4 life, I believe. Yeah, and we gain 3 lives. So very powerful on that end as well. And then Vampire Neonate is just an early game kind of attacker, but also, or not attacker, but early game defender, as well as being able to, on their instep, pay 2, and each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So a good life gain, life loss. Sovereign Bite, while not necessarily the most powerful mechanic, in this particular archetype. I do like including this card here because I do think it is viable because it's a 2-mana sorcery. Target player loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. So very, very good swing there. Basically bolting your opponent and you gaining 3 life. So pretty important. Vampire's Thirst is something you want to cast right after this, which is a black mana instant. You gain 1 life and target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. So -Xing 4 or -X or -4 something for just 1 mana. I'll take that all day long with Sovereign Bite there. Next up for us for archetypes, we have Red White Go Wide, Angel of the Dawn, Gallant Cavalry, and Militia Bugler. Love the Bugler there. A 3-mana 2/3 with Vigilance, pretty decent by itself, but when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with power 2 or less from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So grabbing cards like Gallant Cavalry here, a 4-mana 2/2 with Vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, it creates a 2/2 White Knight creature token with Vigilance. So 4 mana making 2 2/2s, I'll take that all day long, especially because they have Vigilance, so they can get out and also block the following turn. Angel of Dawn is a 5-mana 3/3 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain Vigilance until end of turn again. So Vigilance all around. I'll take that all day long. Super good attacker as well, being a 5-mana 3/3 flyer at common. So you're probably going to see multiples of these. Very good top-end bomb for you for white-red. Next up, we have Goblin Instigator, a good go-wide card. A 2-mana 1/1 makes it 1/1. Star Crown Stag, it's kind of territorial Hammer Skull, but not as good. A 4-mana 3/3. Whenever it attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. And Pegasus Courser is a 3-mana 1/3 with flying. Whenever it attacks, tap another target creature attacking gets flying into end of turn. Sorry. There we go. Whenever it attacks, another target attacking creature gains flying into end of turn. There we go. Good card for you in sealed format as well. Moving up here, we have some Game Bender cards. Tectonic Rift, Lightning Strike, and Trumpet Blast. Trumpet Blast just being the card that makes your go-wide strategy go off. A 3-mana instant. Attacking creatures get +2/+0 until end of turn. That's a great way to end a match. Lightning Strike is a great way to ping an opponent to death, kill a planeswalker, or kill a creature. And Tectonic Rift, another kind of like Trumpet Blast kind of situation. A 4-mana sorcery, destroy target land, and creatures without flying can't block this turn. So if your opponent has no flyers, this is a basically you destroy target land, you get in for free spell here. I really like this card a lot in the draft and sealed environment and think it's a great card in the red white go wide strategy, not go wide strategy. Moving up here, we have the green-blue tempo deck. These are kind of cards that are like kind of getting around other things in the deck list or in the archetypes here. So you have Aether Tunnel, Ghost Form, and the Jeriper Guide. Aether Tunnel being a 2-mana artifact or enchantment aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and can't be blocked. It's a little expensive for me, but I do take it a lot in draft and sealed because the unblockable stuff is pretty decent. Ghost Form is a 2-mana sorcery. Up to 2 target creatures can be blocked this turn. Ghost Form is basically one of the best, I would say, game-ending blue spells for a tempo deck for sure because it makes 2 target creatures like basically unblockable. I just like this card a lot as being a good card to get around some, like, you know, gummed up board states. And the guide here is a 3-mana 3/2 that you can pay 3 and target creature you control can be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less this turn. So again, making your creatures kind of like pseudo unblockable. Moving on to some larger bombs here in this particular list, we have Ghast Bark Twins, Frilled Sea Serpent, and Departed Deckhand. So we want to have the ability to basically have your ramp kind of go to something that's huge and has somewhat kind of removal here, or evasion here. Departed Deckhand is just a great card to attack in, a 2-mana 2/2, basically unblockable unless they control a spirit, and also when it becomes a target of a spell, sacrifice it, but you can also give something else unblockable except by spirits for 4 mana. Frilled Sea Serpent is a 6-mana 4/6, you can pay 7 mana, so a lot of mana there, but super worth it in this tempo list to make it unblockable. And Ghast Bark Twins is a 7-mana 7/7 with trample. That alone is pretty decent, but the twins can also block an additional creature each combat. So if an opponent is coming in with lots of small creatures, like the red-white go wide strategy, the twins here can block 2 creatures and just demolish them because it has 7/7 on the power and toughness scale. And the last here is Titanic Growth, Dryad Greenseeker, and the Horizon Scholar. Horizon Scholar being a 6-mana 4/4 flyer, basically having Omen Speaker's ability, being able to scry 2, but being a 4-mana or 6-mana 4/4 flyer is amazing at the top end slot. Dryad Greenseeker here is really, really good at early game blocking, but also kind of like sifting through your deck if you get in lands at the top. So a 2-mana 1/3, you can tap it, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it into your hand. And that's super good if you're getting into a lot of land and you don't want to be. This is a great card to block with, and then on their instep, tap it, get a land card off the top, or just kind of see what the next card is and then draw into it. And Titanic Growth is just a fantastic way to trade with an opponent or do some extra damage in the air. And next up here we have Green-White Auras, Druid of the Horns, Blanchwood Armor, and Talons of Wildwood. All amazing for the Auras list here. Druid of Horns is a 4-mana 2/3. Whenever you cast an Aura spell that targets Druid of Horns, create a 3/3 green beast creature token. So if you get a lot of Auras, cast them on the Druid of Horns because it makes an army of creatures for you. Blanchwood Armor here, if you get into a lot of like forest in your deck list, you want to get into this. A 3-mana enchantment aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each forest you control. So if you have 4 forests, it's +4/+4 for just 3 mana. That's impactful, and it keeps growing the farther the match goes on. Talons of Wildwood, a 2-mana enchantment aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has trample. That's pretty decent, but you can also pay 3 to return this card from your graveyard to your hand. So if this is removed in some way or is on a creature you don't want it to be, or that creature dies in the mid to late game, you can bring back Talon from the graveyard and kind of put it on Druid of the Horns once again. Next up here we have Oakenform, Knightly Valor, and Luminous Bonds. More auras here for you. Oakenform just being a decent +3/+3 for 3 mana. Knightly Valor being one of the best auras in white. A 5-mana enchantment aura. Enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. That's pretty decent, but the creature also gets +2/+2 and vigilance as well, so creating yourself a vigilance army for 5 mana. Luminous Bonds being a great aura here to, lock down an opponent's creature. A chanted creature can attack or block. And again, there's good removal in white to be had in this particular format as well. And the last 3 here for us, we have the Juniper Guide once again, Reclamation Shade, and Vine Mare. Vine Mare is a 4-mana 5/3 with hexproof, and it can't be blocked by black creatures. This card is amazing. You definitely want to get auras onto this card. It's turning it into like basically boggles for sealed. Reclamation Sage here is if you're up against an artifact or a enchantment deck, great card to deal with those kind of abilities here, especially like a Luminous Bond on your own creature. A 3-mana 2/1. When it enters a battlefield, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. And of course, we already talked about the guide previously. And that is basically it as far as all of the different archetypes for the format here, I believe. Let me know if I'm missing you. I think I've got everything as far as that goes. But that's going to do it for all the archetypes and like how the pre-release should go. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I really hope this was useful to you guys, kind of going over the archetypes, what cards are good for them. And I would definitely recommend looking at the commons and uncommons list I have on the channel as well. And looking at the set review overall, just kind of seeing what's good for draft, what's good for sealed, what's good for standard, modern, and so on. There's a ton of good stuff that's good for draft and sealed, but I definitely go over the top 5 for commons and uncommons in each color in a particular video. And this one, I just kind of go over the archetypes. So hope this was super useful to you guys. Like it if you like it, of course. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I hope you have a fantastic pre-release, and I'll see you next time. Peace.